Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm painting. This is going to be a piece of chapter header artwork for the last book in my work in progress epic fantasy series, Spectrum Legacy. I drew the layout in Procreate on my iPad, printed it, and now I'm using a light pad to trace the swords onto watercolor paper. I'll be making a few adjustments, particularly to the width of one blade, because I felt it should be wider to match the cover art. I feel like I should start all of this by saying I wasn't super confident about sharing this here since it seems so small, and I put a poll up on Instagram asking if I should share it here on my main channel, and I was kind of surprised when the unanimous vote was yes. Not a single person said no, and that was really reassuring because I was actually kind of anxious about even asking if people wanted to see it. Sometimes it's hard to see the value in what you're creating, especially when it feels tiny. Like, this particular illustration will be less than an inch tall printed in the book, so it feels little too. Sometimes it's hard to remember that the small things are what people really love to see, and while I made the decision months ago that I wanted to share more of the little things, stepping out and doing that is kind of intimidating because it's different from what I've been doing for so long. So first and foremost, thank you to everyone who weighed in on it for giving me that little confidence boost and reassuring me that it's okay for me to share everything, even the tiny stuff. I've done gouache paintings for the chapter headers of all the books in this series, and this was the only one where I wasn't sure what to use for it. A couple months ago, I asked my readers if they wanted to see the Spectrum blade on its own or if they wanted the story's two special swords crossed, and people said they wanted to see both. So on the left is the Spectrum blade, which the first book in the series is titled after, and on the right is the Viper's tongue, which the hero obtains in the 5th book. The Spectrum blade has an iridescent shine, so I start by putting down a coat of gray, and while that's still wet, I add little touches of color and let them bleed out and marble together to make it kind of glowy and otherworldly. This sword was kind of funny to draw because while I was working on it, my husband, the sword enthusiast, was debating with me on whether it was supposed to be an oakshot type 14 or an 18. He kept saying 14 and I said 18, and he told me it was too wide and short to be an 18, but I stand by that decision because it doesn't have a fuller, and all the 14s I've seen have a fuller. And if that sword typology talk doesn't mean anything to you, you're in good company because I actually don't understand it much either. The Viper's tongue was a sword I designed that's based on a kris, which was a common design in the Philippines, but it has a non-traditional hilt with angled quillons and a pommel that looks like a snake head. Mostly I wanted the wavy blade to imply the snake's body. When I first designed this sword, it was ordinary steel, but when we were working on the cover of Book 5, my cover artist suggested that it would look awesome if it were bronze, because that would really stand out against the more classical design of the Spectrum blade and would also help make it a little more strange. And part of the deal in the story is they don't really know where this sword is from or what it can do. Polished bronze is a very rich gold that ended up being really fun to paint using a mix of yellows and oranges. Even though the hilt of this sword will be wrapped in brown leather, I wanted some of the gold tones present in the brown to help differentiate it from the hilt of the Spectrum blade, so I laid down a gold base to put the brown over later. As the rainbowy colors on the Spectrum blade dry, I use a damp brush to reactivate the gouache and blend it a little better in a few places. It started getting a little dim outside, so I stopped to turn on the light. But I really prefer to paint by natural daylight when I can because the colors are a lot more true. By this point it matters less though, since I have everything roughed in and am just darkening colors I already have established. I add more gray in some places on the spectrum blade to keep that base color showing here and there. And one thing you can't see is I have my phone set up to the side with the camera set to grayscale, because even though I paint this in color, I need to make sure the painting looks right when it's in black and white, since that's how it will be printed in the book. I have to go back and darken the colors in a few places to make sure they show up as like a blotchy marbling in the desaturated version of the image. For this reason, it was important that I picked my colors using my phone camera set to black and white and not based on what looked good to my eye, because I needed to make sure they'd show up as different contrasts and not just different colors. After the marbling has completely dried, I go back in with some white gouache to add some shines back to the sword. The Viper's tongue needs less of this since I was able to leave some white sections unpainted. I'll still give it some, but not as much. For the Spectrum blade, that wasn't an option because I wanted to make sure the colors marbled as smoothly as possible. The first layer of white is more translucent, which gives me more subtle shines with some of the base color showing through. The second layer is more opaque. This is one thing I love about working with gouache because the opacity is easy to adjust with how much you thin the paint, and that makes subtle layering really easy to achieve. I put some white along the center line of the sword too, maybe emphasizing a little that it does not have a fuller, and this is the finished painting that will appear inside the book. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. It desaturates well, and I'm really looking forward to getting this book out in the next 2 weeks. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.